But the waters of the North Atlantic are extremely cold, and people as a rule do not go into the ocean even in the summer until very late in the summer. And this beach panic scene was very difficult to film. All the children and everything else, that's all extremely well orchestrated, took a lot of time and a lot of doing.
All right, there's a shark in the water. He's been killing people. Legs have been bitten off and there's blood all over the place. Background action.
This is when being in the heart of the summer helped us, because there were a lot of locals there from all parts of the country. I shouldn't call them locals, I should call them civilians.
I was going to be a victim in the estuary. I'm in a boat, in a little rowboat, and the way they shot it the first time, where I'm in the shark's mouth with a blood pack in my mouth, going underwater on top of water, and then I see Roy's son staring at me, and as a last-ditch effort, the shark is heading right towards him, and I just make a move to grab him, and I let him go, and then I go underwater and disappear. Well, what happened in that scene is, it was so violent and so horrendous that they couldn't use it. It was just too violent, period. And I was in this little bucket seat strapped into it, and the shark fin was behind me on a sled. I had the kid in my arms, and I was going to take him underwater, and then I let him go, and then the sled went underwater.
That's much more horrible than what I had done, in the first third of Jaws. And I just didn't like it. It was too bloody, and I thought it was in bad taste, so I cut it out.
You didn't see the shark until the movie's half over, and when you do, it's a stunning reveal, and even better for a screenwriter, it happens on a joke. There's a laugh that precedes the shark's appearance, and it is that laugh that relaxes the audience to the point that when the shark's head appears out of the water and takes a bite at the chum, it's triply startling.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit. You're going to need a bigger boat.
One of the most remembered and oft-quoted lines in the movie is Roy Scheider saying, "We got to get a bigger boat," which he improvised on the set, and I acknowledge that as a writer. I'm pleased that he said that.
The line, "We're going to need a bigger boat," which has become part of the language for people who are faced with an insurmountable problem.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
I wasn't having any luck. Everyone was telling me it can't be done, it would take 3 years in development. And I heard about this guy that had been retired for some time, who did the giant squid in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And his name was Bob Matty. And so when I met Bob, I didn't get the usual pessimistic attitude that you can't do this, you can't make this full, size shark and you shoot in the real ocean. And instead I got this very enthusiastic, yes, we could do anything. We assembled this team, and they started on the frame of the shark. So we were working sort of like from the outside in and the inside out. We were separately modeling the shark, and at the same time they were making the skeleton, and we hoped that they would all fit together.
Well, we had a number of different shark components. We had the full shark, which I call the great white turd, which kind of, we pulled along in the water, and it was often on this huge gantry, like a crane arm. When the crane arm was tucked all the way at the 30-foot bottom, you couldn't see the shark. As quickly as they could blow the ballast and force the arm out of the water, the shark would rise out of the water. The shark could be gimbaled separately on the arm to have an attitude change at the top of the... We had just a fin that was pulled through the water. We had a left to right shark and a right to left shark. And the left to right shark, of course, had no left side. It was all scooped out, and vice versa for the other shark.
We built the shark and tested the shark dry. And it worked fine dry, and so we said, ship it back, to New England, and we'll do the water testing there. That's where we ran into the problems.
The ocean was so brutal on the mechanics. All the pneumatic tubes, all of that special equipment was being dashed and brutalized by the ocean every day.
That's a much maligned shark, and I'm kind of responsible for creating a lot of the bad mouthing about the shark, because the shark was frustrating. It didn't really work all the time. It didn't work hardly at all.
I remember in particular being on our barge watching the first shark test, at which time the shark simply sank to the bottom of Nantucket Sound, and we felt that our careers in motion pictures had gone with it. Frogmen were delegated to recover it and to bring it back to the surface. Everything that could go wrong with a shark went wrong.
Wherever you were on the island, you could hear the radio mics. And they were always saying, the shark is not working, the shark is not working, repeat, the shark is not working. No matter where you were, and for months.
We just waited around. We just waited and waited and waited.
And I remember every day, about the 50th or 60th day of shooting, the crew would come over to me and they'd all ask me during the day, when are we going to be done with this movie? And I would honestly say to them, with complete sympathy for the question, I don't know. I don't know when we're going to finish this movie. We could finish it if I get fired and dragged off the movie, then somebody else could come in and finish it quickly. Maybe they'll shut us down.
Dick and I, battle-scarred veterans of the movie wars, knew that you never take the film out of the camera because they may never let you put it back in, particularly with a movie like this. Even if we got 1/16th of a page of script a day, you kept moving.
This whole system with the barrels, that kept the shark alive. I mean, when those barrels came up, the shark was there. And that really saved us. It saved us, or we'd still be there waiting for the shark to work, really.
Finally, after all this, it was maybe September, that we got the shark to raise out of the water. And that was that one shot with the Roy Scheider, And it just barely worked.
Okay. Good blood.
And action, Roy.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. You ought to come down and ladle some of this shit.
And down. And cut.
And then one day, you heard this. The shark is working. Repeat, the shark is working.
The shark worked well enough that we, for a while there, had the biggest hit of all time. So I really owe the shark a lot more than I want to take away from it right now. And I owe Bob Maddy and his team a lot as well.
We were shooting about, 75 yards off the coast of Chappaquiddick Island. Robert, Roy, myself, Freddie Zendar, the boat wrangler, and an ancient sound man with a Nagra.
And what happened was we were pulling one of the barrels away from the boat. They had put a little eye hook into one of the boards just below the surface, just below the waterline, like a shiv. So the rope would go through the shiv, and it would seem to pull the barrel toward the orca, as if the shark was heading toward the orca. The problem was the motorboat went so fast, it pulled the shiv and the planking out from the hull of the orca, and of course the water rushed in.
And we started to sink. Water started rushing onto the boat. Freddie Zendar jumps up from the hold, cursing and screaming in Austrian, and starts to power the boat as fast as he could toward the beach of Chappaquiddick Island, hoping to be able to ground the boat before it sinks and we have no orca. In the meantime, we're in 6-foot swells, and Steven Spielberg is trying to send safety boats to get us transferred off the boat. Get the actors off the boat! Get the actors off the boat!
I remember John Carter, who won an Academy Award, by the way, for Best Sound for Jaws. He picked up the Niagara. He was on the boat and held over his head and said, "Fuck the actors, save the sound department." And I had this image to this day of John sinking, holding the Niagara over his head, the water up to John's ankles, up to his knees, boat scrambling to pull everybody off the sinking orca, and John with his Niagara going under.
There was a certain level of executive indifference to the sound department's lifespan. Get the actors off the boat! It was funny. We lived.
We had lost the camera. The camera was on the boat too. It went underwater. And Bill Butler said, you know, the developing solution we use is a saline solution, and I think this film's going to be okay if we can rush it to the lab.
We got on an airplane with a bucket of water and the film in it and took it to New York and developed it and didn't lose a foot.
Bill Butler created equipment just to make Jaws. He created a camera platform that, according to the tides or where you wanted to be with your lens, could go either just below the surface of the water or way above the surface of the water. He reconfigured the water box so it was easy to get the focus, your hand in there so you could, you know, pull focus and still have the water lapping the lens.
When it came time to do Jaws, I chose to handhold the camera. And when Steven heard about this, he was rather shocked because he didn't really want a handheld picture. But he didn't realize that I didn't really mean to do a handheld film in the terms that they had then used or thought about handheld on land, but rather to use the knees and the body to take the roll out of the film. And so we gave that a try, and it worked very well. And after he saw a demonstration, he decided that was the way to do it. And as a matter of fact, Jaws ended up being a film shot mostly handheld.
You're gonna need a bigger boat, right? Gotta get to work. How do we handle this?
Both the book and the early versions of the script, Quint is harpooning the shark. His leg gets caught in the rope, he gets dragged over the side to his death where he drowns and is probably bitten too. He dies the way Ahab dies in Moby Dick. It always seemed to us that if Quint is going to die, he should be bitten. The best thing would be if he could go mano a mano and stab the shark, which he does, and his, you know, formidable human talents are no match for the formidable shark talents of the fish. So we chose the ending that we have in the movie, which is that he slides into the great jaws of the fish and gets chomped. And Scheider, you know, sees it and is terrified.
The second orca that was constructed was built just to sink and then pump air back in the ballast, and it would come up for take two and then sink a second time or as many times as we had to sink it. And that was, of course, for the shot where the boat starts to sink and Roy Scheider has to climb out the flipping window and climb the mast as the boat goes down, and he only has one final opportunity to succeed.
Come on, show me the tank.
The most interesting conflict, as far as I'm concerned, happened between me and Steven when it came to the discussion of the ending. Because he said to me, the ending of the book is a downer. The shark gets stabbed with a harpoon, can't hold up the barrels, and eventually drowns, spins slowly to the bottom, and then the story ends, if you will. The characters are saved. That is not a big, rousing ending, and I need a big, rousing ending. So he said, here is what I propose to do. And he told me the ending that he had in mind. And I said, Stephen, that is completely unbelievable. It can't happen. A shark does not bite down on a scuba tank and explode like an oil refinery. He said, I don't care. He said, if I have got them for 2 hours, they will believe whatever I do for the next 3 minutes because I've got them in my hands and I want the audience on their feet screaming. At the end, yes, 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 this is what should happen to this animal.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
In Duel, you hear the sound of, in fact, it was a dinosaur growling from an old B dinosaur picture when the truck went over the cliff, because I'd always imagined the truck to be a bit like a T-Rex chasing a car. And I used the very same sound effect in Jaws, almost as a bit of just a reminder that there was a kinship between both stories, as the shark is sinking to the bottom of the ocean after it's been exploded by the compressed air.
There was a million ways to put the film together. Verna Fields made an incredible contribution with the editing of the picture.
Verna was great. We used to call her, our affectionate nickname for Verna Fields was Mother Cutter. And it was frustrating for Verna. She never had enough film to cut because I was only getting, on a good day I get 5 shots, on a good day at sea, 5 shots. Verna didn't have the film until we finished the movie. That's when Verna's workout started, and Verna and I worked every day on the picture at her house in her little cutting room by the pool, and she did a great job.
My recollection is that we showed the cut version of the film with one big sequence missing, without Johnny Williams' music, in a projection room at Universal Studios. And when the lights went on, there was no reaction at all, as I recall. Well, of course it was only okay. It didn't have Johnny Williams' music. It didn't have some major underwater stuff that we filmed in the tank at MGM Studios in order to get very close angles underwater. So the reaction was, go get the rest of the movie.
Well, when they came back from Martha's Vineyard, they realized that they didn't have the footage, as I understood it, that they needed of Hooper and the shark together in the cage. So I was called in, and we went down to Culver City to MGM Studios and shot it in a tank down there.
There were 3 intercuts for the sequence where the shark attacks the cage. The one, of course, was Dick Warlock, who was the stunt person inside the cage, subbing for Richard Dreyfuss. The second was the shoot with Ron and Val in Australia. And there was Frank Sparks, whose eyes I actually used to substitute for Richard Dreyfuss's eyes, because Richard was unavailable when I was shooting the inserts. So when you see the Richard Dreyfuss scream, that's not Richard's face, those aren't Richard's eyes, that's a guy named Sparks.
Down in the tank was a metal apparatus that the shark was attached to, where it could move forward and backward, sideways, up and down. So it had pretty good movement. Mr. Spielberg was around the other side looking at it from another perspective. He was looking at the shark coming directly at the cage.
Here we go. Attack!
I had always wanted to be in business with John Williams all my life. And when he said yes to Sugarland, we became friends, and obviously I wanted him to do every picture I ever made, and Jaws came second. When he finally played the music for me on the piano, he previewed the main Jaws theme. I expected to hear something kind of weird and melodic, you know, and maybe kind of tonal but eerie and of another world, almost a bit like outer space, inside, you know, inner space, under the water. And what he played me instead with two fingers on the lower keys was dun 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 dun. And at first I began to laugh. I thought he had a great sense of humor. I thought he was putting me on. And he said, no, that's the theme to Jaws. And I said, play it again. He played it again. And he played it again. And it suddenly seemed right. And John found a signature for the entire movie.
One could alter the speed of this ostinato. It could be note, 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 note. Any kind of alteration of speed to very slow, very fast, very soft, very loud.
Part of the genius of John Williams is how he spots music and how he places music in a movie. John did not want music to celebrate a red herring. He only wanted music to signal the actual arrival of the shark.
There were opportunities in the movie to advertise the shark with the music, and also opportunities when we don't have the music and the audience has a sense of an absence. They sense the absence of the shark because they don't hear the thump-thump, because we've conditioned them to do that. But then you may go one step further, and we know now that the shark really is there, but we haven't advertised it with music, so his attack comes out of silence. And now, because you've been conditioned to have the music every time when you don't, and the shark arrives, it's even more terrifying. It's one of the beauties of the film medium that it's the combination of the visual and the situation, this being the shark or the knifing scene in Hitchcock's Psycho, combined with the notes. That combination of sound and image forming a memory.
I think the score was clearly responsible for half the success of that movie.
The first test of Jaws took place in Dallas in a shopping center. Dick Zanuck and I were extremely nervous. Would the shark get laughs? Everybody knew, read a newspaper, that it was not a real shark. And so we went and had a very stiff drink. We went into the theater, and the screams started, and they never stopped. And we were pinching each other. It was incredible.
And it made me greedy. I got so greedy because earlier in the movie, when they find Ben Gardner's head in the boat, I hadn't timed it right, and Richard turns around, that's where the head's already there, and there was no reaction from the audience at all. I said, there's one more scream we can get in this movie if I can figure out the scene with Ben Gardner's head.
Part of that scene was the famous reshoot, which now it can be told was done in Verna Field's swimming pool.
It was simply a matter of timing. And the moment that works the best, which is the moment in the movie, is the moment where he gets to the hole and then the head comes out. There's just a bit of a pause.
Jaws went on to become the biggest picture of all times at that time, surpassing the $100 million mark, which had never been done before.
Every time I fall asleep, I dreamt I was on the third or fourth day of shooting. I wake up with an electrical explosion in my brain. My heart beating, can't catch my breath, looking around the room, where am I, disoriented. I calm down, get a glass of water, go back to sleep again. Same dream. I'm on the fourth day of shooting. And I know I've got another 100, and 46 days left. And I wake up again, same thing. And this thing was just, haunting me all night long until I didn't get any sleep. So, Jaws was a fun movie to watch, not a fun movie to make, under the worst of conditions, and sometimes very sweet conditions, but most of the time under the worst conditions.